Hello and welcome to Kim's Wellness Space, the podcast. This is season 5, episode 3, and today I have a guest. So, if you listened to the first episode in this season, you may remember that when I was chatting to Benn about signing up for Tough Mudder, I did include Sarah Snape as one of the reasons why I said yes. And I did feel that it was only fair to get her on as a guest and give her the chance to talk about that and fill in some of the gaps. So thank you so much for being here and listening. And let's get Sarah onto the podcast with us. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you very much for having me. And I'll just start by saying, not my fault.
That's very true. That's very true. So, yeah, I absolutely cannot lay it at your feet. It was my fault. I take responsibility for that. But because we were working together, I was saying yes a little bit more. Okay, so tell us, Sarah, a little bit about yourself. I know that you're a confidence coach. So how did you become one and why?
Oh, right. So, like a lot of coaches, I know yourself included, it's because of the journey that I've been on in my life. So, I totally lacked confidence in myself. I had low self-esteem, didn't value myself or accept myself. And a lot of it was to do with body image. I was 30 years on the yo-yo dieting roller coaster, and one day said, no, not doing this anymore. But so I knew I had to find a way to accept myself and love myself as I was without placing the emphasis purely on what I looked like and what my body looked like. And this eventually led to me retraining and qualifying as a coach in 2020. So I came across the work of Mel Wells, who is at that time spoke a lot about loving yourself and dealing with body image and food issues. And that was like the catalyst to where I am now. And through my journey and working with a coach myself, I was just like, there must be so many people who feel like this and just don't do anything, say no to things all the time, just from a place of lacking confidence. And so life can be a bit more fulfilling if we say yes to ourselves and yes to opportunities. So that's it in a nutshell of how I got to here. So I qualified in 2020, and then I've been working with clients ever since to help them lead the lives that we all want to lead. My desire is that we follow our dreams and lead fulfilling lives because we're only here once. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I mean, it was brilliant. You were able to explain it so succinctly, but it's such a massive subject, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure we could talk for hours just on the whole body image thing without all the other unpacking. I know for me personally, one of the things that you said that made me really kind of listen and be like, actually, this is something that I might need was the being the bag holder. Being the bag holder gets you out of so much stuff.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
I was a bag holder for a long time.
I was the bag holder, the photographer, I'll just look after the push chair, or you go up with the others and I'll do this. And it's sort of an excuse, but you don't always realize you're using it as an excuse just to stay in the background and not be visible and not take part.
I think you're right. I think that's one of those things that you kind of, especially as a mum, you slide into because you kind of have to hold the bags and then it's quite comfortable sitting back and watching other people do. But I know personally for me, on many of those occasions, although it was comfortable to be the bag holder, there was a little part of me that was like, I wish I could do that. Or they look like they're having so much fun and I haven't done that today.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It was getting to a place where you can say, if your default answer is no, which mine was, and then you think, oh, I wish I'd done that. Or maybe I did want to do that, but it was always, do you want to do this? No. Going to do this? No. And without even thinking about it. And it, like, you're right, you just slide into it before you know it, you're saying no to everything. So people stop asking as well.
Yes.
And it's like I say, you become more of a spectator in life than a participator. And that's not what we want.
No. So if we know that saying yes is really, really important, but if you're someone like we were that's sitting back thinking, oh, I know I just can't, it's too uncomfortable. Like, what's their first step? How do they break that mold?
Well, the first thing I did was I can't remember the first thing I said yes to, but I adopted the mantra, say yes, be brave. And I
Yeah,
know we hear a lot about mantras and affirmations, but I had it as my phone screensaver. I had it on the fridge. I just had it everywhere I could see it. And then eventually one day I was like, no, I'm going to say yes. As I said, I can't remember the first thing I said yes to, but that mantra got in. So whereas before it'd always someone would say, oh, do you want to have a go at this? It'd be no. My first reaction might be no still, but it'd be like, oh, but do you really? And it was like this mantra got in my brain. And so then I'd question, do you really want to do it? And I found myself saying yes to things. But it is all about taking that first step. It doesn't have to be a massive thing, but just, yeah, actually, yeah, one of the first things I did was go on a kayak with my family in Italy. And it
okay.
was, to so many people, that's just such a small thing. But to me, that was a big thing. But I knew
Yeah,
obviously, with my family, I felt safe. Didn't think they'd abandon me in the middle of the lake. Thankfully, they didn't. Um, and so it's saying yes in a situation where you can feel fairly safe, with people that you feel okay around, confident around, they care for you and want you to do well. And that was one of the first things I did. So it's just finding that first thing that isn't too big a leap, too big a step, but you can say yes. And it's like, oh, well, I said yes to that. So can I say yes to this?
yeah.
And it just builds from there.
Yeah, amazing. So, actually, saying that you were doing your first step with your family, how did your family react? Did they notice that you'd started to say yes straight away, or did it take a few yeses before they were like, "Oh, hang on, mum doesn't normally do these things"?
Yeah, well, obviously they noticed that time because suddenly there wasn't anyone on the shore of the lake to look after the bags or anything, so we had to find somewhere to put them. But then gradually over time, they sort of would just started assuming that I would do things. So whereas the assumption had always been, oh, mum will sit on the shore or sit on the sunbed or sit wherever, look
Yeah,
after the bags and everything. Now it was like, oh, come on, then we're off, and so their assumptions changed. And even not that long ago, my son took me paddle boarding, and I had to be quite encouraging because I wasn't doing very well. And he said, well, it doesn't matter if you don't do it. You've had a go. And he said, there was a time when you wouldn't have even put the wetsuit on. You wouldn't have got on the paddleboard. You wouldn't have even had a go at this. So they do notice.
yeah,
And yeah, so we've done a lot more things like the five of us together, rather than the four of them and me watching. So
yeah.
yeah, no, it's changed.
I think that's quite exciting, isn't it? And I feel like sometimes now I'm leading. I'm like, "Oh, I've
Mm.
saw this. Who wants to do this with me?" And they're like, "Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
that's good." So,
Yeah.
have you said yes to something that you afterwards went, "Oh, no, I don't want to do that, but now I've said yes, I've got to do it, and I really wish I hadn't."
Nothing major. The funniest one I had was, the coach I was working with was doing a yoga event in Bristol. And so she said, oh, would you like to come along? So, oh, yeah, I'll come along to support you. Signed up and everything. Didn't read all the details, and then
Oh,
realised it was hot pod yoga, where they sort of have this inflatable darkened tent that's obviously hot, kept at a hot temperature. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, what have I signed up for? Being a woman of a certain age, I run quite warm. So
absolutely.
I was thinking, oh no, why have I said yes to that? And I thought, it's okay, you can go, make sure you're near the door. So if you get too hot, you can get out. And actually I loved it. So
Ah,
it was fine. So I haven't said yes to anything that then afterwards I thought, oh no, I should never have said yes to that. That hasn't happened yet.
okay. Oh, that's good. And I think we surprise ourselves, don't we? I think
Mm,
because we're so used to saying no,
yeah.
like for me, definitely starting to say yes, I was doing it, but I still in the back of my head was like, I'm not even sure I can do this. I've said yes. How am I going to do it? I think the tough mudder thing is a little bit like that. Like I know that I
Mm,
can do it, but there's still lots of challenges. And the challenge for me isn't actually the going around the course. It's going to be like going up high and
mm.
underwater. And, there's everything's very mindset. The actually saying yes to signing up was quite easy. I think all the things that come, we'll
Yeah,
see.
well, I did the Race for Life mud run. Oh, I can't quite a few years ago now, 2018, 2019, something like that.
Yeah.
And again, that involves going up high, which hasn't been one of my strengths in life. But that I know Ben was saying on his episode that the community, people just want you to get up there and they will help you. And that's what I think so lovely about these events. So you'll be all right there.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. The community is amazing. I mean, after having that podcast with Ben, I actually had other ladies around my kind of age reach out
Mm,
to me on Instagram and say, you know, we're not fit, but we still do it. You know, we are
yeah,
classed as overweight, but we still do it. Like there's been so much night. So that's lovely. And hopefully I'll get to meet some of them when we're there as well, which would be
yeah,
amazing.
that's really
Um,
cool.
yeah, it's really nice. So if we track back a little,
Mm,
um, I was just trying to think how I'm going to word this. When we're doing do you think that it's because we were mums, or do you think that anybody can get stuck in this sort of we're bottom of the list thing? Mums
mm.
have lots going on, but is it out there for every woman? Do you think that we kind of put ourselves last?
I think it can be. The putting yourself last, I think, is a very mum thing. But this feeling of saying no, I think, can come from everybody. Because for me, I was saying no even before I was a mum, and
Right. Okay.
that was from my not wanting to be seen, not wanting to be visible.
Yeah.
To me, from body image issues and being overweight, inverted commas.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it can be for everyone. I think the bottom on the list of priorities, I think, is a very mum thing. But I don't know, as women, we're sort of brought up in this whole thing of, we look after people, we do everything else for everyone else. So it's very easy to not even be on your list of priorities. Um, and so I think that's where the saying no comes from. Even in a workplace, it's you know, you can say yes to everyone else, but not to yourself to progress your career. Um,
Yes.
so I think it is open to everyone. I think it's very common with mums that we do it. Yeah, we're down here, and you've got the kids, the husband, partner, pets, school functions, everything else before us.
Yeah.
Um, and it needs to change really. And I think once I
Yeah.
change that, you actually, because you're feeling better, you do everything else better, and everyone has the ripple effects of the change in your life. Um,
Yeah, it's amazing how these things kind of knock onto each other, isn't it? I think, like for
mm,
me with wellness, that's the better you feel, the better you want to feel, and it's a little
yeah,
bit addictive, and it's quite a good addiction to have. And you can just pick one, like sleep. I always say to people, like if they want to start with your sleep. If you get a good
yeah,
night's sleep, oh my God, the rest of the things they're not easy, but they
no,
definitely are easier.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, it's amazing. So now you're in a position where your confidence is good and you're used to saying
Mm.
yes. Do you still say yes to everything, or do you now kind of think it through a little bit further before answering?
Um, there are some things it will just be yes, I'll just do and don't even think about. But yeah, other things I might think, do I really want to do this? Does it fit in? Is it fitting into everything else? So I might be a bit more evaluating of what I'm saying yes to. But my initial response is still yes all the time. Um, but yeah, sometimes but it is okay to say no as well. And that's but you have to sort of get to the point of saying yes to everything before you can start saying no. So another sort of activity based one for me is what do they call them when the ring goes behind a motorboat? And I did
Oh
them
yes.
once in my 20s. Absolutely hated it. So when we were on holiday a few years ago and everyone wanted to do it, and I was like, no, I'm not doing it. And they were like, oh, you say yes, you say you've got to say yes to everything. And I'm like, but I know I don't like it, so it's fine. I don't have to do it. So if you know you don't like something, you're not having to say yes to things you don't like, don't enjoy, make you feel bad. That's not the thing. It's getting to that place of knowing you can say yes. Um, and I see it as sort of yes is the mantra of reinvention, if you like. So you're reinventing yourself into somebody who says yes, who then leads their life becomes more fulfilling.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I've shared with you before, one of my favorite quotes is confidence is not a byproduct of, no, sorry, I'll start again. Confidence is not a necessity to do anything. It is a byproduct of doing the thing. And it is the more you say yes, the more confident you are to say yes to the next thing and the next and the next.
Yeah.
And as I say, they don't have to be massive things.
No.
Just,
Start small. The
yeah,
small step. You like the small step, don't we? The
I do.
first
Yeah.
small step.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, definitely.
And that's a good point. I mean, I would 100% agree with that. Like, at the beginning, after we'd started working together, I was definitely saying yes to everything that approached.
Mm,
But now, because I've said yes so many times and I understand a bit more about how my brain's working, I suppose. So
mm,
I'm not saying no out of being scared, but I've actually
yeah,
got the confidence to go, actually, this isn't for me for these
mm,
reasons, not because I'm hiding and I can tell the
yeah,
difference.
and
And that's
that's it.
really empowering.
Yeah, you get to that place of knowing, is it fear that I'm saying no for, and that's not what we want to be saying no because, and or is it, am I saying no because actually no, I don't want to do it, or
Yeah.
it's not for me, like you say, and that's fine. Um, as long as you can evaluate whether it's a fear-based no or a no, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So if people want to come find you, if they want to work with you, whereabouts can they do that?
I'm on Instagram at Sarah J Snape. My website is sarahjsnape.com, and they're the two main places. I'm on Instagram most out of all the social media. And yeah, I've got a retreat coming up in July, a day retreat with a friend Rosie at Just Rhoda, called Bloom. And that's because we want people to bloom in their lives. And that's all part of saying yes, is to help you bloom in your life and lead the most fulfilling life you can. But yeah.
Yeah, that sounds lovely. So what will happen in the retreat? Is it just coaching or
There'll be some coaching. We're looking at energetics. We're going to do sound, maybe a bit of yin yoga. We're just finalising all the details at the moment. To be sort of workshoppy style in the morning, and then a bit more sort of breath work, sound based in the afternoon.
yeah.
That's in Worcestershire. But no, be a good day. We did it last year. Loved it. So
Oh, that sounds amazing. I'll make sure that all the details for you and for the retreat are in the information for the podcast. So that's so nice. Oh, it's so nice to be able to get on and have a chat with you, Sarah. I really appreciate
yeah.
that. And so that you haven't got the full blame for me doing a tough mudder.
And just to finish, I wanted to say, if you look at excitement and fear, and we've talked about this before, they're the same physical reaction, but the only difference is when you're excited, you breathe. And I think that's half the problem with fear, is that we don't breathe and we end up spiraling down this, oh my goodness. But if we can just breathe, then you can start to think, oh, well, it might be all right. And actually, I might quite enjoy it. And what if this happens? And focus on the positive side of it. So when you're coming up towards your tough mudder, just think about how you'll feel at the end, and yeah,
Yeah.
obviously needing a shower, but it'll be amazing.
I know. Actually, I don't like being muddy, so that's going to be a huge challenge for me. I really am not looking forward to being muddy. But anyway, I think I'm trying to embrace the what if it's amazing.
Yeah,
That what if is a great thing. It'll all be fabulous, I'm sure. And I've got a
yeah,
great group of people that I'm doing it with, and my son did say, "You don't have to do any of the obstacles, Mum. We can just walk around." But I was like, "Oh no, I'm not doing that. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it properly, and I'm going to give it all a good go." So
yeah.
yeah, it'll
Oh,
be
that's
good. It will
brilliant.
be good fun. Oh
Yeah.
well, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to
No,
say
thanks for having
goodbye
me.
to you now, and as I say, I'll put all the notes in the podcast information so that people can find you and
Fabulous.
follow you on Instagram. And I will speak to you very soon.
Yeah,
Sure.
take care. Thanks a lot,
Okay.
Kim.
Thanks, Sarah. So I really hope that you've enjoyed listening to today's podcast with the confidence to say yes. As I say, I will make sure that all of the information for Sarah goes in the podcast notes. And as always, you can find me over on Instagram at Kim's Wellness Space. If you haven't listened to any of my other episodes, please go back and have a listen. They are available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube now. But yes, thank you so much for listening, and I will catch up with all of you very, very soon. Bye.